Good evening, everyone joining us online. We welcome you to the December 2023 meeting of SEAC. As this is in the agenda, the organizational meeting for SEAC. As superintendent, I would share up to the point of elections and then turn it over to our 2024 chair for remaining the procedures. We do have just shy of quorum, so we will be moving through the agenda in absence of the vote, unless at some point we are able to obtain vote, and then go back to the original agenda. So with that, we will shift the agenda to an information meeting until at some point we have quorum, and then we would flip back to the official agenda. So good evening and welcome. The Durham District School Board acknowledges that many Indigenous nations have long-standing relationships, both historic and modern, with the territories upon which our school board and schools are located. Today, this area is home to many Indigenous peoples from across Turtle Island. We acknowledge that the Durham region forms a part of the traditional and treaty territory of the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation, the Mississauga peoples, and the treaty territory of the Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nation. It is on these ancestral and treaty lands that we teach, learn, and live. And moving to the Durham District School Board's Indigenous Rights and Human Rights Statement, the Durham District School Board recognizes Indigenous rights are distinct. In the exercise of those rights, Indigenous staff and students shall not be subjected to the actions with the aim or effect of depriving these distinct rights. The Durham District School Board is committed to learning and working environments that center human rights and equity and are safe, welcoming, respectful, equitable, accessible, inclusive, and free from discrimination. And with that, we will go left around the table for who's at the table this evening.
Eva Kiriakis, Association for Our Children. Tara Cully, Durham Young City Association. Melissa Cook, DISA Elementary Representative. Elizabeth Daniel, Member at Large.
Jennifer McLaughlin, Savannah, otherwise known as Black Parent Support Group.
Spencer Burrell, Autism Ontario.
Lisa Ray, DSAA Secondary Representative.
Michelle Crawford, System Lead, Inclusive Student Services. Lisa Rye, Recording Secretary.
And Andrea McCauley, Superintendent of Education. We have regrets this evening from Charmaine Brown, Morgan Cameron, Trustee Donna Edwards, Rowan Jarvis, and Trustee Kelly Miller. And so with that, because we do not have quorum, we are not able to approve our November minutes, and we'll pause on that item. In addition, we will pause on the election of the chair and vice chair for 2024 and move into our staff reports, which will start with our system lead, Michelle, providing update.
Good evening, everyone. So we have a couple of updates. On November 28th, the entire Inclusive Student Services team had the privilege of hearing the jury speak. It was a professional learning. It was the first time we had been together in 3 years, so since COVID. We gathered at Trail Hub in Uxbridge, and the topic was centered around our human rights policy, really talking about the code, competing rights, and how to support all students for meaningful access to education. On November 29th, we had our family engagement night, Life Beyond High School. We had a great turnout, even though the weather was not very cooperative that evening. We had 53 agencies that were present, agencies and organizations that represented quite a diversity in terms of support. So we had community and recreation supports, financial supports, developmental supports for students, housing and related services, health supports, educational supports, and employment supports. I do have a couple of copies of the brochure. It's a fabulous, fabulous resource. So if any of you would like a copy, I could give you a paper copy or I could send you a digital copy as well. What is great about this resource is it actually has, I'm gonna do a show and tell because it's so great. Information about the service as well as a description and contact. So it is a fabulous resource of all the community agencies for our kiddos and to help them in terms of the life beyond high school. The other update that I have is in regards to DDSB at home. We are moving into a virtual pilot. What that means is next year, we'll be servicing students who would still like the virtual option for grade 4 to grade 10. There will be no small class, so special education classes. Facilitators are working with the school team and will be working with parents and caregivers about next steps. We do anticipate that there will still be, of course, CERTs with DDSB at home, and of course, inclusive student services supports with district support as well. The info went home to families early this week, and facilitators are just working through to support students and families for those students that will be moving from a special education class virtually back into their homes. And that's the end of the report. Questions? No?
Just to let SEAC know as well, appreciating trustees are not able to join us this evening. The December Standing Committee of Board received a couple key reports with impact to students and families. So the capital priorities submission to the ministry, so that's our application for new school builds and major renovations. And so the board has finalized, we did submit up to 5. They are prioritized in the submission to the district, and those have gone to the ministry. Our lead for facility services, Lisa Bianca, walked through the report, including how, what the term is, shovel ready. We are to move on construction. So previous practice had us applying for the schools before we could, and needing approval before we could move through any step of the process. The capital priorities project plan has changed with the ministry, and now we're able to say, have the property, have the plan. Sometimes in works with contractors, there's a bank of approved plans with the ministry, of which the Durham board has plans that are submitted and within that approved bank. And so a number of the requests are what is referred to as shovel ready. So as soon as approval is given, processes can start. So the prioritization was West Whitby in terms of the congestion up and down the 412 corridor. In that regard, the Board of Trustees also received information around 2 boundary reviews. So one is a boundary review around the new unnamed North Oshawa Public School that will open in September. And so an adjustment of boundaries within North Oshawa to create the community population for the new school. The new school is north of Northern Dancer. The students that will attend that school are currently in southernmost schools. Northern Dancer is at capacity, and so it will not deem to alleviate a pressure point on Northern Dancer, but return kids to their homeschool community that reside in that area. The second boundary review is Vincent Massey Public School, and so Vincent Massey shares a fence line with Eastdale over in Oshawa. And due to congestion, population, portables on site, looking at what is currently the footprint of the community for Vincent Massey and reallocating a few of those addresses to another Oshawa school. So consultations have started. So Tuesday night, our facility services team with a number of other department reps hosted the first public consultation, which is really a key part of the process before the board makes a decision on boundary review. So those were key reports. So if of interest, please let us know and we can direct you to the board agenda package. The school maps, enrollment plans, as well as the capital priority submissions in what order and by what address are all really clearly laid out by our facility services team. So I just think that's important information if you're hearing shifts from families or concern. Inclusive student services are right alongside in terms of planning, as Michelle referenced. The shift to DDSB at home, our team is intensively involved, as well as our mental health lead part of the steering committee as we look at transition for both staff and students, some of which who have not been in in-person schools for 4 years, and some of our youngest students who have never attended in person but have multiple years of experience with school. And so really making sure that we're looking after that. We apply the same kind of principles where there are boundary reviews in terms of supporting student transitions in that way, as well as with the new school opening. As part of our 24-25 planning, we do start taking a look at what's our current enrollment from that area, including our students who have learning plans through individual education plans and or individual education plans with special education placements. And so we start to look at that in terms of our commitment to keep kids in or near their homeschool community to see what decisions may need to come out of that. So all of that is in the works as we begin to plan for the 2024-2025 school year. Hard to believe that we're there, but we are. So we'll keep SEAC informed, but we thought it was really important tonight, particularly around the shift to DDSB at home, to let you know about the grade focus, as well as that we have over time operated with a number of programs in DDSB at home, but are bringing all of our kids back in person. Jen?
I just want clarification, maybe I'm mishearing what
Michelle?
Michelle said.
Yeah.
Will there be no more special ed classes in class? They're all gonna be transitioned into virtual?
No, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. So currently at DDSB at home, so our virtual school, elementary and secondary, we have special education classes, right? So we have PLP classes and we also have SSP. For next year, since we're moving back to grade 4 to grade 10 as a virtual pilot, all special education classes that have been virtual, I guess this would be year 4, are moving back to in-person.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
I'm glad you're there. Yeah, and we'll take a look at support. So the
Okay.
school will have the
Okay.
regular supports of the inclusive student services team, social work, speech, psychological services, facilitator, hearing vision based on the students, as well as CERT and educational assistant. It'll just look that different, that special education classes through IPRC placement will not be part of the school regular class placements, will be.
For the boundary reviews, do either of those, does the schools involved, do any of them house like special education classes?
So the new school's being designed from the footprint up based on the community. So I'm not yet able to speak about the unnamed, but what I can say is that when, for example, using the most proximal example, when Northern Dancer opened, and we did the same kind of jurisdictional scan of who's that homeschool for, we knew we had a strong cohort, I believe it was 18 at the time, students who were accessing learning through practical learning placements. So the school opened with 2 practical learning programs to bring those students home into their home school. When LC McGill opened, and we did the same scan, just staying in the same kind of geography of North Oshawa, when LC McGill opened and we did that scan, there was not a number that would say open the class in that being their home school, that the numbers were more focused in other communities. So LC opened no special education classes. So it just depends based on who's in that. We need the catchment area. And then once we have that kind of school boundary, we go through all those analysis.
Right, I'm just thinking of the school you say that share a fence line.
Yes, so the majority of kids would be in area, but we'll do the same thing, look at it based on postal codes and access. And also, when we open up for the list of consideration for kids who may be considered, we will also take a look at that. But in general, the schools in the Eastdale family of schools, because that's where that is, Gordon B. Addersley, that Jake over to Vincent Massey. There are school support programs in that area, there are practical learning programs in that area, so we'll do the same thing, we'll do the jurisdictional scan as part of our annual planning.
Okay, it was just,
It's why the boundary reviews launch now,
right,
so that the addresses are firm and decided prior to staffing processes starting, because in between those two things is student planning, so we try and center them, so analysis get to be done.
right. So just some of my thought is that if practical learning classes in the 2 schools are not, like, so we're not talking a large number of students for those kids who build relationships within those classes. If there could be an avoidance of Unless, you know, there's a choice on their part to move them, it would be
Yeah,
less disruptive for the kids, right?
There isn't, Vincent Massey turnover.
All right, that's just my thought
there
there is, I don't, if you can avoid moving kids, it don't necessarily mean.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the areas also, the boundaries on each of our special education class programs is a bit different than school boundaries. Because they're that broader draw. So it's a bit different at the secondary level where the majority of students accessing through placement actually reside within the catchment area. In elementary, one school might host practical learning, another school might host structured learning, and another school might host developmental for the whole family of schools, or 2 or 3 schools within that area. So it's a bit different. The boundaries start changing a little bit for us based on students.
And through your chair, we do a 3 to 5 year projection. So that's why we start the process now. So when we sit down, not only with the considerations, but also taking what we know the students that are in grade 4, grade 5, grade 6, we do the projection out. So we know where we need to look at potential opens of classes, potential movement of where they're going from elementary to secondary. They could be in grade 7, but we know that we're looking at placement for grade 9. So we are projecting 3 to 5 years.
So lots in the next 3 months in terms of planning ahead, but exciting for kids to be able to move back into their homeschool community. And for us to potentially be able to address family concerns from Vincent Massey and the traffic, given the high population of both schools and a busy street. So our next item was a discussion on the parent caregiver engagement event. I'm going to suggest that with half the committee present, that we pause that and carry that over. If there's, I'm just looking at voting members, that's all right. Okay. We can't address business arising from the minutes because we can't have minutes yet. Is there anything from the associations to share out for the members present? In your correspondence package, so the Ministers Advisory Council on Special Education released 3 sets of minutes. So it is a provincial level committee with a quorumed role-based membership. For example, Peggy Blair, who's now with Upper Grand District School Board, sits on the committee as the superintendent rep provincially, and different associations have representation there. So there is a means either through SEAC and through your associations, and or if you have any questions about the Maxi minutes, please let me know because I can take them back through Peggy as well. But just sharing for transparency of the conversations provincially, which I think is really fantastic that we've been asked to share those through with the table. Usually when the committee is coming up for meetings, we're able to submit as district staff practices that are having a positive impact for students and families and concerns as well. So that's where you'll see some of that feed into that table. And that moves us, because I don't want to leave people hanging if there's been any community concerns being raised with any committee members. I want to make sure that we give that attention this evening.
So I had a parent write this to me. She wanted to bring to my attention that the DDSB accommodation policy is missing the parent-student request form. The accommodation request form should also be a part of the DDSB parent guide to special education, so that parents' accommodation requests are thoroughly sought through with the school team carrying out the accommodation. This is from a parent who's been reading all the information online, navigating services and advocating within the school system. She's had some great changes for her child. So she's also noticing where she would have liked information to be, and then sharing it with me because she's part of Autism Ontario. Of course, I share it with you.
So first of all, thank you to the family for connecting with you. I think one of the documents that we currently have under review in the department is the IPRC guide, the individual placement review committee guide. And so very much appreciate the suggestion of making that linkage over to the policies and procedures where that is. So really appreciate that from a parent voice too of where it was being sought. Through our human rights equity advisor's office. The form is currently still under development, so we appreciate patience, but we also want to reassure that the advocacy and connection does not require the form. And so at any point in time, families seeking to connect around accommodation or inclusion differentiation are absolutely welcome, either by phone or in person or by email, to reach out to school administrators. If they're not feeling comfortable through the classroom, absolutely welcome to contact administrators, or can contact our leadership team here centrally to help navigate this conversation. So we don't want to feel like the form is holding up process and responsiveness, but the form is in development and on its way. So thank you.
Thank you. I think for this family, she tried the informal approach first
Very fair.
and then had to find a form.
That's very fair. Usually the concern comes out of need not met.
Yes.
So thank you for that. Any celebrations or successes?
Adam went to his first official team dance last weekend. He closed the place down.
That sounds great.
Went with a few friends. It started at 6:30. We were there like 6:35. At about 9:30, I'm tired. We're gonna go home. He's like, no, 5 more minutes, Mom. 20 more songs later, it's like he and like 3 other boys on the dance floor, right as they were flipping the lights on, time to go home. I said, oh, dude, you've been dancing nonstop for 3.5 hours. Let's go.
That's really fabulous.
Yeah, he had a great time.
That's really
He
fabulous.
had a very good time.
I have one. My husband and my sister-in-law grew up across the street from a woman now, but as children. From the time they moved into the house, they've known this lady. And for a lot of reasons, she ended up going into care, but we didn't know where she went. We had no contact, we didn't know how to find her. Both her parents had passed on when she was an only child. So determination of my husband, as well as my sister-in-law and us in general, through a notice on the door from a property management company of the house, we managed to track down the public trustee, and we managed to track down her social worker, and of course, asking this young woman if she recognized us and wanted us to come see her. She said yes, very excitedly. And so we've been to see her a couple of times and just recently brought her some Christmas presents. So we feel like that's a huge success because we've been trying to track her down for probably about 6 years. Yeah. So that is a huge success for us because she doesn't have a lot of family to be there for her. So we can at least kind of be surrogate in a way.
I love that. That's awesome. And then I'll also share, because I know SEAC sits advisory to the board on traditionally special education, mental health and well-being, but in my portfolio, I also have the privilege of supporting our education community partnership programs, so day treatment. So the composite of the 50 classrooms is my school as family of school superintendent. And so yesterday, one of our partners, Interface, had all of the program classes from across the Durham District School Board, and we do have a number, as well as the classes from Court of Pine Ridge with the agency, all in the cafeteria at GL Roberts, CDI down by the lake, for a holiday talent show of the kids. And one, the kids were phenomenal. 2, to see the staff well up and the kids being phenomenal was pretty incredible. And the young man who emceed has been with us for a while and had a rough entry and reason why we're over. And he emceed with such clarity and thought and celebration of the other students. And at one point said, I'm going to go off script for a minute. I just want to thank everybody in this room for helping me be the man that I am. Because he's transitioning out of the program shortly into his next phase. And to see the advantage of having been in this chair a while is I know his journey to get there and know his journey through there. And now to see him fly is absolutely incredible. So shout out to our day treatment partners, a shout out to all the educators, psych services staff, his family, every adult that's wrapped around him, both in DAGE program and around. And especially congratulations to him because he's done the most of the heavy lifting to get there, but to see and know where he's come from and where he was shining yesterday in this big space, and be so driven in the leadership of that space was pretty incredible to feel in the room kind of wrap around him and acknowledge that too, because most of the workers and program leads and clinical director have been right alongside him through this journey too. So I think everybody realized the significance of it, and to watch when that moment hit him and that he knew he was being successful in that moment, that was quite a privilege to be part of, just a small part of his moment yesterday. So I share that knowing that as we move into the holiday season, we know our schools are transitioning, families are transitioning. For some of our kids, they're looking forward to a couple weeks from now, and for some of our kids, they're not. And so just kudos to the families at home that manage that, to the partners that wrap around them, because a lot of our kids will have 2 weeks of 24-hour staffing, not through us, but through our partners to get them through the holiday season in whatever that means for them. And then to our schools who celebrate alongside kids, but really prepare and put plans in place to support kids through the holidays and on the reentry to January. So it's just noticing those other layers underneath the layers that are occurring in our schools as they manage complexity of unfilled and high absence right now. Is pretty incredible to see the heart line still pull right through and the extraordinary lengths that staff and kids are going through to make this a special period for each other. So just wanted to share that with thanks. So with that, not an official close, but I'll close the unofficial meeting. And our next SEAC is January 18th, 2024. We will adjust the agenda to keep the election of the chair and vice chair on the agenda. We would not have minutes from this evening, but we will prepare them, but I don't think we can approve an unofficial minute, but what we'll do is we will find a way to share that out. We'll bring that back to this table to make sure it was reflective of the information, but we will be going back and approving November minutes then in January. We'll continue on with caregiver as the open discussion period, and our literacy team will be with us to do a presentation on structured literacy and how we're moving that forward in the district and supporting schools. So a very full evening, but I think a really important evening in a variety of topics. So I look forward to seeing you all in January. Thank you.
Thank you.